Hey, so glad you're with us for the Wednesday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. And check out who's here. It's Jim Garrity. He's back from on vacation. He also had a couple of work-related events in there. But Jim, thanks as always to Andy McCarthy and Rob Long for filling in. But great to have you back.
It is good to be back. And yes, listeners, I am so exhausted from my trips. The only way I can relax is to take another trip. Actually, I was in Asheville, North Carolina. Listeners probably remember that part of the country was hit by Hurricane Helene and just absolutely devastated. Very pleased to report that it's made quite a strong comeback. Not everything's back to 100%, but downtown Asheville, the River Arts District, all that stuff thriving once again. Lots of shoppers, lots of people dining, and the missus and I did our part for the local economy. I'll say that much, including the microbreweries.
Excellent. Well, glad you had a good time away. And, a couple things happened while you were gone, end of the shutdown and a few other things. But a lot to talk about today. We're going to get into the Michigan Mamdani. We've talked about him before, but Abu El-Sayed, one of the Democratic Senate candidates, and he's been very busy deleting old tweets as he's trying to win a statewide race now. We're also going to be taking a look at people in the housing industry, slow learners, not really learning the lessons from a couple decades ago. And Lee Zeldin oozing competence once again while talking about people who lack it very much when it comes to competence, specifically Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom. But in the meantime, let's talk about competence when it comes to computing, because in business, they say you can have better, cheaper, or faster, but you only get to pick two. But what if you could have all three at the same time? Well, that's exactly what businesses like Cohere, Thomson Reuters, and Specialized Bikes have done since they upgraded to the next generation of the cloud. It's called Oracle Cloud Infrastructure.
OCI is the blazing fast platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs, where you can run any workload in a high availability, consistently high performance environment and spend less than you would with other clouds. Well, how is it faster? Well, OCI's block storage gives you more operations per second. Cheaper, OCI costs up to 50% less for computing, 70% less for storage, and 80% less for networking.
Yeah, and right now, with zero commitment, try OCI for free. Head to oracle.com/martini. That's oracle.com/martini to try OCI for free. Oracle.com/martini. All right, Jim, let's get to our good martini here, and it's a good response to a really bad situation. I don't know if you're keeping track at home, but it's been more than 10 months now since the massive wildfires that devastated parts of Los Angeles County, Pacific Palisades, of course, Malibu, many different areas, tens of thousands of people displaced. And in 10 and a half months, the number of permits is paltry. There's talk of Gavin Newsom trying to, get low-income housing in there and whether people are going to be able to keep their land or not. But nonetheless, not much has been done when it comes to getting people back into their homes. But EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin does not find this acceptable. And he was at a Breitbart event yesterday and lit into both Governor Gavin Newsom and Mayor Karen Bass.
Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom need to get off of their and allow all of the people in Los Angeles to rebuild their freaking homes and their businesses. Okay, you have people who are suffering extreme amount of frustration, anger, and pain because of whatever type of bureaucratic red tape, delays, and incompetency is resulting in the local and state leadership preventing people from building what is theirs. They lost everything. They lost their homes, they lost their businesses, and now they just sit there and wait, and they don't even know when it's going to end. It is incompetency. And for these people who live there, who lost everything, the most important thing that you can give them is to instantly allow them to rebuild their lives.
Well, Jim, you got to cut Gavin Newsom a little slack. He's very busy trolling President Trump, who he will not ever be running against on X. He's busy playing resistance hero when it comes to ICE. But no, seriously, his job is to get these people whole again, and this could not be going slower or make his competence look worse.
First of all, Greg, I really wish Lee Zeldin could speak for the administration on all issues. He is always on top of the facts. He is always specific. He is always clear. As demonstrated in that clip, he can show anger, but he doesn't come across as a guy who's rabble rousing. It comes across as like just righteous indignation that people are not doing their jobs and explaining how and why they're not doing their jobs. I am looking at the Los Angeles County permitting progress dashboard. This is as of this morning, November 12th, right? There are 7,417 destroyed or damaged units, right? There are 762 building permits issued, right? Now, the last of the fires went out at the end of January. Some were over before then, but like, let's assume that like February was the start where you get started with this. It's, it's November, right? So we're now pretty much a good year into this, and they are just barely above 10%. Have they issued permits for? Never mind rebuilding. Now, as I just mentioned, I was just in Asheville, North Carolina, which had been, River Arts District got, the flood waters look like, from one of the marks on one of the buildings. Not quite as tall as me. I'm 6'2", but like, let's say, between 5 and 6 feet, right? First floor of every building destroyed, this was the River Arts District, a ton of galleries there. And they just talked about the sheer number of works of art that were destroyed. Like, so just the artistic loss, but think about the economic loss for every artist, every gallery owner, everybody who's got jobs in that entire region. And there are cafes and there are restaurants and other stuff along that line. Now, I'm here a year ago, a little bit more, actually, probably a little bit less than a year, and it's back. Not, probably not 100%, but it is significantly back. Los Angeles, if we walk around the Palisades in at the end of January, what are we going to see? My guess is we're going to see a whole bunch of empty lots. We're going to see a whole bunch of rubble. We're going to see a whole bunch of places where the reconstruction has not even yet begun when you're at 10% of the permits that you need nearly a year later. Absolutely abysmal. I understand why Rick Caruso, who ran against Karen Bass in the last mayoral election, he argued against a recall election for Karen Bass, which I was a little bit surprised by. I thought Karen Bass had failed her city as spectacularly as just about any mayor has ever failed their city, being on the other side of the world and not coming back as soon as it was clear the city was experiencing an unprecedented disaster. And he said, look, if we do this, it gives her an excuse. She will say this is a distraction. This is going to focus our energy and time on fighting over whether the mayor should stay in office. And I suppose I can see that logic. But the problem is you've got Karen Bass in place there, and you've got Gavin Newsom in place there. And all the leadership that was in place before and during the crisis is still in place after the crisis. And we are less than shocked at the extraordinarily slow pace of rebuilding out in Los Angeles.
No, that's entirely correct. And blame probably belongs in both directions. A lot of those permitting processes are local things, and so that's on Karen Bass. But Gavin Newsom, with the thick, especially environmental regulations that exist in California, getting to the point where you can actually rebuild and environmental studies and all this nonsense, his government is certainly not doing anything to expedite this process as well. And there should be a massive indictment against him as he prepares a presidential campaign. And so, and just an indictment against blue state policies. If this was happening in a red state and all these people were still displaced, I think we'd be hearing a lot more about it.
Greg, first of all, and remember, we can go back, we can find the quotes. Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom pledged there was going to be rapid rebuilding, that they said they were taking away all the permitting, red tape and bureaucracy and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And this is going to be the fastest rebuilding. And we haven't, obviously we're seeing at a very slow incremental pace. You know what I'm just really, who could, I could conceivably see happening? This is just predict. This just popped in my head as we were discussing this. If you're J.B. Pritzker and you've got $1 billion, imagine him going in and financing the reconstruction of a whole bunch of stuff in Los Angeles and saying something like, I'm here because your governor isn't. Now, J.B. Pritzker wants to be governor, wants to be president of the United States, wants to be the Democratic nominee in 2028. Gavin Newsom wants to be the nominee in 2028. He could do that. And even if you're not, let's say you're any one of these other Democrats who allegedly wants to run for president. We mentioned Whitmer does not seem to, but let's say you're, Kirsten Gillibrand apparently is still interested. And,
oh, gosh.
That poor woman in Iowa never got her ranch. But nonetheless, you could do something, this is an easy target on Gavin Newsom. And you can say, if you want to see what Gavin Newsom can do for America, just take a look at what he has done for Los Angeles County after these wildfires. My guess is that'll be a very effective line of attack, because it's basically saying he's all talk, he's all smiles, he's all Gordon Gekko hair. He is not about results, and that is, what should matter as a Democratic nominee and the next president.
No, that's entirely true. He had this quote, I think it was last week, maybe a week before, where he's like, not only have we fulfilled every promise, we've done it ahead of schedule. And I'm like, are you not paying attention to this? Forget high-speed rail, which is another just massive boondoggle, but so many other things that are over budget, not done well, or not happening at all. Just a terrible track record all the way around. And it's the people who are suffering. We'll talk about Gavin Newsom's political fortunes, but these people have been homeless for months on end, and it's not going to be changed anytime soon, unfortunately. Absolutely ridiculous. All right. Well, if you're in California and you're dealing with this situation or just frustrated in general with bad government, this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. And as seasons change and the days grow a little bit darker, some people struggle with that more than others. Some people love the fact that it's dark earlier. Some people don't. They need that sunlight. But it's also heading into the holidays, and maybe you're thinking about checking in with friends, or maybe it's time to just deal with some issues in your life. BetterHelp can be the thing that makes things better. And so BetterHelp, their therapists work according to a strict code of conduct and are fully licensed in the United States.
By the way, Greg, we're very proud that this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. And you people might think, wait, do Jim and Greg deliberately talk about things that will make people go bonkers? That will make people say, just pull out their hair and say they did? No, we don't. It's entirely coincidence. But after the topics we talk about, you find yourself needing a therapist. Well, we're going to understand. BetterHelp therapists work according to a strict code of conduct and are fully licensed in the United States. BetterHelp will match you with a therapist based on a short questionnaire, using more than 12 years of experience to get it right the first time. But if for some reason it doesn't work out, you can switch therapists anytime if you need. And with more than 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is one of the world's largest online therapy platforms, having served more than 5 million people all around the world.
Yeah, so this month, don't wait to reach out, whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself. BetterHelp makes it easier to take that first step. 3 Martini Lunch listeners get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/3ML. That's better, HELP.com/3ML. All right, on to the bad martini now. And Jim, you and I are what certainly my children would consider old at this point. But sometimes with that age comes memory of things that happen that you probably want to keep in mind when people suggest terrible ideas like this. It was just a couple decades ago that we were talking about subprime mortgages and is the bubble going to pop? Well, it did pop big time, fall of 2008. We saw major financial firms collapsing. We had the stock market basically plummeting. We had to have the Toxic Asset Relief Program, or TARP. It was right in the middle of the Obama-McCain election, a total mess. And now, because of the fact that home prices have risen so much and interest rates are higher than they were, it's hard for people to buy homes right now. That is a very legitimate concern. But there are right ways and wrong ways to deal with this, and this is the wrong way, I would suggest. This is from paymentsjournal.com, but a lot of folks are reporting on this. Fannie Mae is lowering its minimum 620 middle credit score requirement for purchases and refinance loans, a move that could broaden access to home ownership for borrowers with thinner credit files or lower scores. Following Freddie Mac's lead, Fannie Mae is removing the threshold from its desktop underwriter eligibility determination system. How bureaucratic does that sound? But while desktop underwriter may no longer require a credit score, it will continue to evaluate loans using a comprehensive set of credit risk criteria to determine whether they qualify for sale to Fannie Mae. Well, that's delightfully vague, Jim, but this is how we got into the problem that led to the housing crash almost 20 years ago now, is because, well, we need to get more people into homes. So you know what? Let's not worry about their credit rating or their ability to pay these monthly mortgage payments. That bill will come due, and it's going to come very painfully if the last round is any indication.
You know, Greg, as you were reading through that, I was reminded of a quote from former Democratic Congressman Barney Frank. No, I will not attempt to do an impression because someone will accuse it of being hateful, discriminatory, homophobic, etc. But way back in 2003, he said, quote, "I want to roll the dice a little bit more in this situation towards subsidized housing," unquote. Well, when you roll the dice, there is always the chance you're going to end up with snake eyes. And that is effectively what happened. And that is a major factor in what set off the Great Recession, starting in late 2008, continuing into 2009. And some would argue continued well through the first term of Obama. Look, we would all like to see everybody have an easier time of buying their first house, right? The problem is a whole bunch of people don't have assets, don't have an income level, have not been able to put together a nest egg or savings, and they have a situation where they also don't have anything to put up for collateral. They just don't have much. The idea of saying, well, they don't have much, but we'll give them loans anyway. Well, then you're taking a very big risk there, because yes, some people are going to be very diligent. They're going to pay their mortgage every month. Some people are not. Right. I also understand, apparently, Greg, other great news, this is kind of related. Did you know that adjustable rate mortgages are back?
Oh, great.
There are some people who are like, huh? Probably our younger listeners, all the younger listeners we have. They're probably ARMs are just, what are they? Okay. But adjustable rate mortgages were this thing where you had a very nice low rate for your mortgage for like the first 2 years, 3 years, usually some short period like that. And then after that, it suddenly jumped up, and all of a sudden your mortgage payments became a lot more expensive. So the idea was, this was very popular in the era of home flipping. You can make an argument. I wouldn't say completely that HGTV caused the Great Recession, but listeners with memories will say, back in the Bush era, this was a hot thing of like, you're gonna flip a house. You buy one that's kind of run down, fix it up, make it look very nice, and then you sell it at a higher price. You make you pocket some, you pay for all the repairs you made, you pocket some money, you buy another house, and this is how some people were making money. There was that couple on HGTV this was what the whole show was about. And look, if you can do it, great. But a lot of them were buying them with adjustable rate mortgages because they did not intend to own the house for very long. The problem is when you can't sell the house when you want to, and you reach the point where all of a sudden that mortgage payment that had been very small suddenly gets a whole lot larger. And all of a sudden you're buying a house, and if you happen to be trying to sell a house at the wrong time, all of a sudden you can lose your shirt. And that is what happened for a whole bunch of folks during all that. So here's the thing. High credit standards, as much as they're a pain, as much as they involve saying no to people who are decent, but who otherwise don't have the financial resources, they are necessity, because otherwise the banks make a whole bunch of loans. These people stop paying back the loans. And as they say, if you owe the bank $1 million, you really have a problem. If you owe the bank $1 billion, then the bank has a problem, right? And that's what happened with all this stuff. So we've seen all this before. It is in living memory. And actually, it's like half a generation, if that.
Yeah.
15 years. Yeah. And yet here we are, and they're going for it again. And it's extraordinarily frustrated. And the really frustrating thing is that we can say this is a very bad idea. We can warn people. We can point to the specific quotes. We can point to this. Did no one see The Big Short? They made movies about this, right? This is not an obscure thing that happened. And yet we're all kind of stuck, going along for the ride because we cannot opt out of the economic consequences of government decisions like this.
No, it's utterly ridiculous. Like you said, we've lived this nightmare, and it wasn't that long ago. It's, if you're a young adult, it's hard to remember perhaps because it was 2008, 17 years ago, I guess. But, lessons should be learned from that. There are certain reasons these criteria are in place. The ability to pay back is the key to getting the loan in the first place, or having someone who can co-sign, or having collateral, or whatever that is. And so, yeah, Jim, it reminds me of, I think I saw this on social media somewhere, but I don't know who to give credit. The typical HGTV House Hunters episode is, she has a small Etsy shop. He raises salamanders. Their budget is $2 million.
Yes. Who are these people? Oh, and their parents are senior executives at J.P. Morgan or something, right? Like they leave out that part.
Yeah. They'd have to be. Yeah. Wow. So please reconsider this. This is a really, really bad idea. So anyway, they probably won't. All right, let's talk about OneSkin. Love OneSkin. Love the sunscreen. Haven't seen a lot of the sun lately around here. It's been cloudy and a little bit rainy at times, and certainly getting cooler. But in the summertime, really good for not only blocking the UV rays, but taking care of your skin during that time. And right now, OneSkin is also launching its limited edition holiday sets, which includes the Nightly Rewind gift set. And that's one of those rare gifts that's actually impressive and someone will actually use. That's important at this holiday season. Something they might actually use. Providing an upgrade to anyone's nightly routine. It's perfect for your wife, your mother, your sister, your daughter, whoever can use it. Featuring their best-selling face moisturizer, their new peptide lip mask, and a cooling gua sha tool. Each component of the set designed to work together as your body enters its natural nightly repair mode.
Certified safe for sensitive skin. OneSkin products are free from more than 1,500 harsh or irritating ingredients. They're dermatologist tested, and they've been awarded the National Eczema Association Seal of Acceptance by the NEA, not the National Education Association, the bad NEA, the good NEA. the National Eczema Association. They deliver powerful results without the side effects. And remember, all of OneSkin's products are designed to layer seamlessly and replace multiple steps in your routine, making your skin health easier and smarter at every age.
At the core, of course, is their patented OS1 peptide, the first ingredient proven to target senescent cells, the root cause of wrinkles, crepiness, and loss of elasticity, which are all key signs of skin aging. And these results have now been validated in 5 different clinical studies. So for a limited time, try OneSkin for 15% off using code 3ML at oneskin.co/3ML. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, so please support the 3 Martini Lunch and tell them that we sent you. That's code 3ML at oneskin.co/3ML for 15% off of OneSkin. All right, Jim. Mamdani was elected, of course. Was it last week? Yeah, last week. That's how fast time goes. But he's not even in office yet, and we've already got Mamdani clones popping up all over the place. And the fact that he won and won fairly comfortably means they're going to be running the Mamdani playbook. One that we've talked about before certainly is Abu al-Sayed. He ran for governor and lost in the Democratic primary in 2018 to Gretchen Whitmer. He's now in a pretty competitive Senate primary on the Democratic side for the U.S. Senate seat in Michigan. Polling is scant on this. There was one back in May that showed al-Sayed just 2 points behind Congresswoman Haley Stevens and State Senator Mallory McMorrow at 11%. But now it's even tighter. Stevens at 26%. McMorrow at 25, al-Sayed at 20, so he's in third, but he's certainly not out of the running yet. And hats off to the Free Beacon for this story. Basically, before he launched this Senate campaign, al-Sayed did what Mamdani didn't, and that's delete his entire X feed because he knew that some of the things he said are going to pop up. And well, the internet lives forever, Dr. al-Sayed. So let's go through a couple of these things here. According to the Free Beacon article, the Senate candidate had anti-ICE statements related to the whipping of the Haitians. Remember that whole hoax from 2021? Listen to this, Jim. He says, blaming horses for the dudes riding them to whip Haitian refugees is like blaming Haiti for the fact they're coming. Well, yeah, you should blame Haiti for the fact that they're coming. But how about asking how our policies decimate Caribbean and Central American countries and why we allow white supremacists to police our border? So not a radical there at all. He also, of course, had anti-police posts. One in June 2020 said police have become standing armies we deploy against our own people, and that U.S. cities, quote, spend way too much on police departments to police poverty, and that fixing that is what the defund movement is all about. He also sent out a fundraising email in October, marking the second anniversary of the October 7th terrorist attacks in Israel, but not mentioning the attacks, only saying 2 years ago this month, Netanyahu's military launched a ground invasion of Gaza, and therefore you should donate to him, I guess. So there's other candidates in other states. Graham Plattner is certainly one of them. You've got the insane lieutenant governor in Minnesota who's expected to be competitive for the seat being given up by Tina Smith. But here in Michigan, it really seems like the Mamdani playbook is being followed step by step.
First of all, Greg, we need to work on for future episodes of this podcast. Every time we mention the name Graham Plattner, I want the Nazi flourish from John Williams' soundtrack to Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade. Bum, ba, bum, 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 bum. I want that music to play every time I say Graham Plattner. Oh, I'm sorry. He didn't know it was an SS tattoo. Who could figure it out, There are schools on our caps. Anyway, so regarding the Michigan Mamdani, I fully await, like within a month or two, he's going to be saying, oh, no, it was an autocorrect typo. I meant to write, befriend the police, not defund them. Befriend the ICE. That's not, Now, here's the thing. If you are running for office and you genuinely have had to change, like changing your mind is not actually a crime in politics, believe it or not. It is okay to say, I've looked at this issue some more. I've studied this issue, and I don't think we can go, we cannot, the policy that I supported in the past, I've concluded just won't work the way I want it to, and thus I'm going in a different direction. He could say, I've talked to people who are victims of crime, and I no longer think we should defund the police. He could say, I have, talked to people who have been victims of, gang members, or I've seen the plight of human trafficking, or I've seen all kinds of consequences of illegal immigration, and I no longer believe we should defund immigration and customs enforcement. Like you could do that. It would probably cost him some votes, but he could, like that's the intellectually honest and legitimate way to say, I don't have the opinion now that I did back then. All throughout the presidential campaign, we kept seeing Kamala Harris, and people would say, oh, in her presidential campaign of 2019, because she never really made it to 2020, that she had supported, transgender surgeries for prisoners in federal prisons. And we would just get this statement issued through a spokesman that she no longer has that opinion. And it somehow became unfair to attribute those positions to her. She never elaborated on when she changed her mind, why she changed her mind, what she was thinking then, what she was thinking now. Like, you could do that, but if you want people to believe that you generally have changed your mind, it's good to explain people why, walk people through your thinking. We're not getting any of this from this guy. And if he does, it'd be great, but I don't think it's going to be the case. And I think there's just idea of like, vaguely 1984-ish Orwell. We've always been at war with East Asia. I have always supported law enforcement and ICE, and you can't prove it because I deleted my tweets. Except, very rarely are your tweets actually completely gone. And people pay attention to these sorts of things. People like the Washington Free Beacon look at that and say, wait a minute, you had all these tweets. And if you want to say, I was young and foolish then, 2 years ago, when I, as Graham Plattner said when he was getting his, when he said all those radical things on Reddit, it was 3 years ago, man. That was like how he's grown as a person so much in the intervening 3 years. You can do it, but worth noting that Kirsten Sinema out in Arizona started out as a hard left, activist, and then became a fairly hard left Democratic member of Congress, got elected statewide in Arizona. And I don't know how much we'd argue she became centrist, but she held the line on the filibuster and a couple of other issues, and kind of became, whole conservatives developed a real soft spot for her because she was willing to take those very unpopular, very brave stances. Remember the lefty lunatic protesters who were chasing her into the bathroom? You can say, you know what, I know more about the issue now, and I actually don't think that policy proposal will work anymore. And I think people will respect that. But we don't see that from this guy. It's like, poof, it has disappeared. It is gone. You're never going to see my old positions again, except they still exist. And nobody's going to forget that. Oh, no, I'm a sensible centrist moderate now. No, it doesn't work that way. Unless you walk people through your thinking. You have a convincing explanation of why you felt one way and then you felt the other. I don't think we're going to get that from this guy, Greg.
No, not in the slightest. And the difference you see between El Sayed and Kirsten Sinema is it politically convenient or politically inconvenient for you to take this position? Kirsten Sinema's political career essentially blew up as a result of her changing her position on these things. That's how you tell it's a genuinely held belief. There's no political benefit for you in there. Now you've got El Sayed. He's not running for Rashida Tlaib's congressional seat where these positions will probably play pretty well. You're running statewide in a pretty purplish state, and so you got to not look insane, and those statements certainly don't help.
Yeah. By the way, some people, a candidate could say, I still in my heart believe this is right, but I also know that the people of this state do not agree with that position. And so if elected as your senator, I would not push for policies in that direction. People may or may not choose to believe you. Senators serve for 6 years. As we all like to joke, a whole bunch of Democratic senators are very hard left for the first 4 or 5 years. And then like a year before Election Day, all of a sudden they start deviating from their party and saying, I'm an independent. I'm a maverick. I don't always vote the way my party wants me to. And we're like, what did we just neuralize her for Men in Black the last 5 years? And unfortunately, in too many cases, it works. But like this guy could say, Michigan doesn't support that policy, so I'm not going to stand by it anymore. But I notice he's not saying that either.
No, that's exactly right. And you see this in the shutdown votes, too. Tim Kaine just got reelected. He can vote to reopen the government. Mark Warner's up in 2026. I don't know. You can't face the wrath of the base, so he still has to vote no. And then in this situation, looking at some of the head-to-head polling, and obviously we're still very early, El Sayed is the best opponent for Mike Rogers. He leads him by 6. The others are tighter, but as we talked about with Graham Plattner, don't want to run that risk, especially in a year that could potentially trend against Republicans if it's anything like what we just went through in Virginia and New Jersey and so forth. So best to get him out of the way politically as soon as possible.
Yeah, I don't like this losing by winning, or let's have the opposition nominate Genghis Khan because we have a really good chance. But the problem is if you lose, and you never know when your candidate's going to get caught with a young hussy or God knows what else right before election day. And then you end up losing to Genghis Khan. And then you've got Mongolian warriors ravaging the landslide, ravaging all over the countryside. And who do you have to blame for that? You can only blame yourself. So, yeah.
Yes. So
root against bad candidates, period.
Jim, it's pronounced Gengis.
That's right. Cut off ears. Cut off ear.
The haughty John Kerry. Anyway, Jim, well, let's hope that he doesn't get past the nominating process again, just like happened to him 8 years ago. But we will find out. And like we said, there's Mamdani clones in way more states than just Michigan. So hopefully they meet a similar fate. Anyway, great to have you back. We'll do it again tomorrow. See you then.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Columbus of Radio America. Thanks so much for being with us today. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast if you don't already, and to have your friends do so as well. We'd love to have them listening. Thanks for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Also, get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Greg Columbus. And coming soon, Facebook and Instagram. Have a great Wednesday. Join us again Thursday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.